Okay, good evening. I am calling to order this meeting of the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education. It is Thursday, March 20th, 2025 at 5:30. We do have one trustee teleconferencing from a remote location, so there is a script that I'm going to read now for that purpose. I want to announce that we do have a trustee who, for the record, is teleconferencing tonight. I am therefore going to read our typical disclaimer. I would like to announce for the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code 54953, Section B, concerning teleconferencing of meetings. President Dr. Elliott Hazen is participating in the meeting by speakerphone, also Zoom, from 4038 Ski View in Truckee, California, 96161. I have a few questions to ask President Dr. Hazen in accordance with the Brown Act. Also, in accordance with the Brown Act, this location has been identified on the agenda for this meeting. Trustee Dr. Hazen, are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Has the agenda been posted at your location?
Yes.
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in the public portions of this teleconference meeting from your location?
Yes.
Thank you. Members of the board, are you able to hear President Dr. Hazen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's yeses from the board and myself as well. For the record, all members of the board have said yes. Finally, because we are having a meeting with teleconferencing tonight, all of our actions will be via roll call vote versus a majority vote. And with that, I will move on to our land acknowledgement. Good evening. Good evening. As we begin this meeting, it is important to pay respect to and acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Costanoan, and Esselen people, and additionally pay respect to elders, both past and present. Dr. Adamson, will you do roll call, please?
Absolutely. President Dr. Hazen.
Here.
Thank you. Acting President Clerk McNary.
Here.
Trustee Otmar is absent this evening. Trustee Shamas.
Here.
And Trustee Wax.
Here.
Thank you. We'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. And before that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Adamson for any additions or changes.
Thank you. We do actually have one walk-on item this evening. Our JV softball team, they have a game scheduled out of county this Saturday. The reason it's coming to your attention now is it was a game that was rescheduled as a result of rain a few weeks back. So we are hoping for the board's approval for that this evening. I'm recommending that we add that to consent as item K.
Okay. And there's a copy of that item, should be in your board binder at the dais. So with that, I will go out to public comment. Seeing no public comment, any board discussion on the agenda with the addition of item K to consent? Seeing none online. Can I get a motion, please?
Also move.
Okay, motion made by President Dr. Hazen. A second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Wax. And all in favor, notify us by saying aye.
Roll call vote again.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to need a post-it for that tonight. Mm-hmm.
All good.
Okay.
We are a team.
Yeah, we switched roles. I love it. Okay, roll call vote, Dr. Adamson.
Yes, sure. President Dr. Hazen.
Yes.
Acting President Clerk McNary.
Yes.
Trustee Wax.
Yes.
Trustee Shamas.
Yes. Okay. That passes 5 in the affirmative and 4, excuse me, that will be our roll call tonight. Okay, I'm going to start tracking better. Okay, and with that, we will move on to reading out the items on closed session this evening. The Board of Education will meet in closed session to consider matters appropriate for closed session in accordance with Education Code and Government Code. There are 4 items on our closed session agenda tonight, and I will read those now. First item is negotiations, collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with PGTA for the 24-25 school year. Second item is collective bargaining session and planning and preparation with the CSEA for the 24-25 school year. Item number 3 is public employee dismissal, discipline, release, leave complaint. And item number 4 is a review of appeal findings from investigation of complaint concerning an employee. Is there any public comment on the closed session topics? Okay, there are no comments on closed session. We will adjourn to closed session. Welcome, everybody, to this open session of the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education. We are now, and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are now going to reconvene in open session and report action taken in closed session. With regard to item 1, the board is going to continue that discussion at the end of open session this evening. With regard to item 2, at this time, there's nothing new to report. Item number 3, nothing to report. And item number 4, review of an appeal of findings from an investigation of complaint concerning an employee. The board approved a letter to be sent to the complainant with all board members present voting yes and trustee Otmar not present. And with that, we can move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Priest, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America. And
Thank you. Okay, as we can see here, we've got the Pacific Grove Middle School Orchestra, so I will turn it over to Dr. Adamson to introduce them.
My goodness. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. What a delight to see this room filled with so many smiling faces, our students. I don't think this group needs any introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and give them the introduction that is so worthy of them. And our esteemed teacher who's with us this evening, Mrs. Priest. So I'm so glad to welcome our Pacific Grove Middle School Orchestra who are joining us this evening to play some incredible musical pieces. This has really been a commitment of us as a board this year to start our board meetings with some program or some opportunity for us to showcase the incredible talents of our students. And so we're just really grateful that you can be here with us this evening. So my pleasure to introduce all of you, and Mrs. Priest, thank you.
Looking forward to playing for you this evening and public colleagues. Our first piece is entitled Path to the Pacific. We use this piece, Path to the Pacific, to inaugurate the new classroom back in 2008 when the new classroom was built. The orchestra took this piece to the state festival and earned an excellent rating. And our composer of the piece is Alan Lee Silva. He wrote music for Seventh Heaven, a TV show a long time ago, and the one about eight simple rules for dating my daughter. So it dates us a little bit, but nonetheless, this piece is inspiring with a path right to the Pacific. Are you ready, orchestra? 2028. We're so lucky to have a 4th and 5th grade band and orchestra program. Thank you, board, for supporting that. And we're looking forward to those many elementary students joining us at the middle school. Just infusing our program, and we're going to have an intermediate group now, and possibly a basic instrument class, and we're really looking forward to that. So stay tuned. The next piece is a fugue. Fugues were written in the Baroque era when the piano had not been invented yet, so they used the harpsichord for a keyboard, and it didn't sustain. The harpsichord is kind of like a music box where it pings and then it backs off. It does not sustain. So for that reason, the notes are shorter and the dynamics are varied, extremely contrasted. This piece is called Fairly Fugal, and it's by Anne Svensson.
That's unreal. Wow, well, bravo. And I think the applause at the end said it all. I always judge music and how much I enjoyed it by how quickly it feels like it ends. And I wasn't ready for that last one to end. So, wow, thank you for sharing your incredible talents with us. Before we invite you all for a photo with the board, I would like to just take a moment to really acknowledge each of you who are here with us this evening. Like I'd said, something that we've started this year is doing presentations just like this to showcase the programs that we have, but showcase the talents of our incredible students. And one of the things I like to do is recognize all of the students who come to perform at a board meeting with the recipient of a certificate at the end. This is officially our Culture of We certificates that identify and represent the work that each of you students here with us this evening are doing to showcase, yes, how we are working to build our culture of we, but more importantly, implementing our 3 core values of belonging, of safety, and of prosperity. So I know there's a lot of you, and so typically we'll go ahead and call a name and we'll go do applause. So I'm going to call your name. Come on up. Mr. John will go ahead and give you your certificate, and I'm going to just ask the audience to save applause till the end, but I do want to go ahead and still recognize each of you individually. So we'll do this when you get your certificate, go back to your seat, and then we're going to end with a photograph with the board as well. So thank you all. All right, so Josh Wu, Atticus Swenderman, Mia Suzuki, Lillian Peltier. And if I am mispronouncing any of these names, whisper it in my ear when you get up here, please. Albert Lynch. Oh, I'll slow down a little, Mr. John. Grace Liu. Kevin Lee. Anjanette Jamison. Caitlin Henderson. Chantal, and I love the way that you spell your name, Chantal. That was my favorite name growing up, and Shontle. I love that. Chantal Ray Gonzalo Apolinario. What? Benjamin Goldust. Rio Del Castillo. Cody Chen. Anderson Chavez. Clint Box. Sean Blakely. Aaron Bell. Let's give each of them a big round of applause. Congratulations to all of you. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize Mrs. Priest. This is just evidence of the incredible work that you do on a daily basis. And I know that each performance that you put on throughout the year gives us that opportunity to showcase the incredible talents of our students. So thank you for nurturing that love of music and creativity amongst our students. We are so fortunate to have the program that we have. And I attribute so much of the work that you do along with all of our music teacher colleagues. So thank you. If you would come up, please, and receive the certificate we'd like to give to you. Thank you. So I'm going to invite our board members and our student board rep to come and just join the group, and we're going to do a group photo. Okay.
Okay, after our break, We are returning to open session and we are lucky enough to have a second presentation this evening from some of our students at Robert Down. So Dr. Adamson, can you introduce them for us?
I would be thrilled to, yes, indeed. Well, I was fortunate to actually attend Robert Down's STEAM and Science Fair event last week, and I was just blown away by the level of engagement, by the students' creativity, by the thought and rigor and level of inquiry that they all showed with the projects that they were presenting that evening. And it just seemed absolutely appropriate, given we had our board meeting this week, that we have them come forward and just present a little bit on the process. And so it's my pleasure to hand things over to Mrs. Pecan to talk to us a little bit about this and just introduce our students. So thank you for all being here this evening.
Thank you. So I'm Stephanie Payon, fifth grade teacher at Robert Down, and the history of STEM Club started 14 years ago with a small group of students who then did science and STEM activities during lunch, and then we decided to put on activities for our families. And so we have some of our team here to give you some insight as to our STEM night, how we plan and organize the event for families. And they would just like to share a little bit about their experience. And then we have some photos from last Thursday night, just so everyone can see how it was. All right.
I was teaching the Glowforge station, and it was really fun just watching the little kids just beam when the laser was going. And I was like right there in the not the best picture, but so yeah. And it was really fun because I got to see everything basically in the whole entire STEM club. And then we got to work during the recesses to learn about the STEM things. I worked for the Paper Airplanes Challenge and Paper Airplane Station, and it was kind of fun or funny to see like when you had the challenge and somebody beat another person in the grid and their friends, and they're just like, oh, dang it.
And then we talk about, well, how can you modify your design so that plane flies further, right?
Yes.
All right.
I was at the paper plane station, same as Jamie and Griffin on the screen right there. And I saw all the little kids throw the paper airplanes. Even though they had one try, they just kept on trying.
I was at the 3D printing station. My favorite part was when kids came up and they were like, they would come up every minute or so and they would like see how much the rocktopus, they called it, would grow, and they would keep coming until eventually it came to the stopping point, and everybody was like, whoa, I want to do this when I get in 4th grade and 5th grade. So yeah. I was doing art and robotics station, and I'm helping little kids, but that kid is not living, so it was hard, but it was fun. And
He means they didn't leave his station, so he was always busy.
so after 1 hour, I went to our station, but Juliet and Aaron's mom is so doing well. Yeah, so that's impressive.
So they had, like we were talking about centrifuge, and so they had a spinner, and so that they got to lead a little art painting station with that.
I was doing the catapult design challenge, and I liked helping the little kids modify their design and make it go farther, and I liked that they kept trying.
I was also at the catapult design station, and me and Kaylee asked the kids what they learned and how could they make the catapults better.
What materials were they using?
They were using popsicle sticks, rubber bands, pencils, and foam canisters.
All right. We have a few more members that weren't able to make it today. that were on our list, but we want to celebrate all of our students. That music performance was amazing. It just shows the importance of the arts, and that's what, you know, A in STEAM incorporates, is all of the arts. And these kids just, I'm just so sad to lose them when they go to middle school. My dream is to have STEM at like one big STEM night for the district, not just at Robert Down, but to bring all our schools together and have it in one place, because a lot of my students that leave me at elementary school, we had middle schools come back and volunteer at STEM night for their community service hours, as well as high school. So it's just really important to me to keep that focus, and hopefully that dream could happen. So thank you for your support tonight, and hopefully we can have a bigger event next year. Right.
Once again, we are just in awe of our students' abilities and talents. And I think you've just kind of indicated how that becomes a district-wide event and evening through. We've got students who really are wanting to come back and continue to be involved. And to each of the students who spoke this evening, thank you for, so many of you talked about the younger students coming to your tables and just being intrigued and asking questions and curious. And one of you said, oh, they wanted to be able to do that one day. What were you calling it? The octopus, right? I remember that. There was the gold one, right? Yes, it was really, really cool. Again, thank you to each of you for your involvement. And I think what this really speaks to is that STEAM, that science, engineering is alive and well. And each of you have an impressive future ahead of you. So thank you for being with us this evening. And just as we did with our orchestral students, we want to be able to recognize each of you for presenting here this evening. I've got more certificates than names, so I just come forward and we're going to do it the same way, and Mr. John will go ahead and present it to you. So Lucas Gunn, Griffin Hazen, Kaylee Can. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? I just realized that we had one other student who's actually online with us, and that happens to be Griffin Hazen. Griffin, I think you had a few things you wanted to share. So if we could just get him on the screen, and the mic's yours, Griffin.
Yeah, thank you for Miss Pan for organizing the STEAM night, and it was really fun for us and the little kids.
Thank you, Griffin.
Well said, Griffin. You summed it up. So we have a certificate for you, and we'll make sure I'll bring it personally to present to you right in one of the next few days. Dylan Apollinario.
Wait till the end.
Yes, we'll wait till the end.
Oh.
Jamie McConnell. Maddie Sherrod. Lee Ellis.
Ellis Lee.
Oh, goodness gracious. So we need to correct that one. Yes. Ellis Lee, thank you. Sunjin Kim. Hunter Pritchard. Okay. Josiah Trebek. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Congratulations to all of you. Keep reaching for the stars. I can see you all in some really incredible and impressive careers in the very near future. And then, of course, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our teacher. So Mrs., I was saying your name incorrectly, Payon, thank you. I had the opportunity, it was just very coincidental to visit your class the day before this all occurred. And I was so inspired by the story that you told about how this was something that really began 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and it was a handful of students who came to you wanting to put on an evening like this, and look how it's grown. And I think that's how great ideas are born. But it definitely takes the foresight and the vision of a teacher to really bring it to life. And you have continued to allow that to grow. And the fact that you've now got students from middle and high school who come back to want to be involved in it. So we're so grateful to you for continuing to nurture the love of science and engineering and STEAM within your students. So thank you to you. We'd like to do a group photo with all of you as well. So if you want to come and stand in front of the dais, and once again, I'm going to ask the board to come around to the front. And Director Silvera, thank you.
guys ready?
Give them just a moment. Okay, that was amazing. And on that note, we will move into communications and start with our student trustee.
I'm just going to read off a quick list of things we've been having going on, not just at the high school, but also at the community high school. So for the community high school, there's going to be a kayaking field trip on Friday, April 4th, and that's going to be their end of the year kind of like celebration and field trip for them. And then also this past week, some of their students got to spend time at the middle school flex lab and just do some various components of research with technology, and also Mr. Bradley was helping out with that. And at the high school last week, we had our Breakers Got Talent rally, which was on that Friday. And then the night before on Thursday was our evening performance. So it's just awesome to see all the different students performing and having their own musical talents, and just awesome to see them share that with us. And then also we had our spring musical concert was last Friday, 14th, and there was a really good turnout with a lot of people coming to that. And we're just so happy for students sharing those talents, and also for Dr. Warren, our director and composer, helping with that. And just lastly, our Sadie's dance is also on April 4th, and that will be held in the student union. We're just looking forward to that for one of our dances coming up this spring. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Next up is board member comments and written communications, and I'll go ahead and get us started on the written communications and my comments. I received written communications regarding Monterey County School Board Association training on the LCAP. A thank you to the board for our service. An email regarding budget concerns, another school accountability report, and a couple newspaper articles. And my last one was some emails regarding community high. So that'll segue into my board member comments. And I had the opportunity this morning to visit community high school and spend about an hour there with Mrs. Dieter and Mr. Abdur Rahim, and Miss Cordova joined us for a bit, and former trustee Brian Swanson was there. And I got to participate in their social emotional learning circle time. And we did a few different activities. And I think something that stuck out to me was just how the focus was on the process and not the result. We did activities with listener and speaker, and it was more about what worked and didn't work for you as an individual. Was it easier to be a listener? Was it easier to be the speaker? And just kind of the questions about the thought process and the individuality of each person's experience. I don't know, I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm definitely going to be back, and thank you to them for allowing me to come to visit today. My other board member comment, I also was at the, we are part of the Community Human Services JPA, and today was our board meeting there. We pay to an allocation each year to be a part of the JPA. So that comes up every fiscal year. So in April, CHS will be sending out a letter to every organization in the JPA requesting that, and they will also come and provide a presentation to us about the services that they provide to the community, including ours. They also have a couple of events coming up in the community, so I'm just gonna mention those and I'll share the information with Dr. Adamson to include. They are hosting a Solving Homelessness, a community conversation on April 24th. It's gonna be a conversation addressing homelessness from an author, Kevin F. Adler, at Miss. There's a registration opportunity and he's going to talk about the roots, causes of housing instability, strategies for destigmatizing homelessness, and how each of us can play a role. So they hosted the event last year in Carmel. This year it's going to be at the auditorium at the Middlebury Institute. So that should be really interesting and timely. So I'll pass that information along so that we can share it more broadly. And the other event that's coming up is Community Human Services is hosting an event called Banding Together. And it's going to be a concert fundraiser in support of their mental health, substance abuse, disorder, and homelessness programs. And that is going to be April 12th at the Sand City Art Park. And it's going to be a really neat casual affair. Come out, bring your lawn chair and your sunscreen and support a great organization that does so much and adds so much to our community. So I will get that information so we can get it out there. But those are my comments. I'll move on to you, Trustee Wax.
Let's see. A quick question. What does JPA stand for?
Joint Powers Authority.
Joint Powers Authority. All right, great. I had pretty much the same emails received. I just had one additional email about a concern about a dictionary, I believe in all the elementary schools that was being passed out. And so I will move to my board comments. I went to the RHD STEM Night / Science Fair and I was really impressed. And in our small community, I was also very competitive because I was like, Forest Grove, we must have a science fair. But it was awesome. I played around with lots of exhibits and it was a great event. So thank you all for organizing it. And then last night I went to the open house, not so much as a trustee, but as a person who has a almost middle schooler. And I'd like to thank the principals joint of PG Middle School. It was super welcoming. It seems like really transitioning kids to that second step in education is a real priority in terms of just the tactical things that you do, but also getting their heads wrapped around it. So I appreciate you putting so much thought into that. And it was great. As I was telling people earlier, but every corner you turn, there was a trombonist and it was great. And that's it. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the presentations tonight and the orchestra. Like, did you notice this room was very acoustically well equipped? I mean, I was impressed. Like, wow, this is sounding good in here. So, and just a reminder that, you know, this district, we do such a good job on music, and it's something that, again, we don't really promote that much, but it's something to keep in mind when we're looking at our budget and looking at, you know, where we want to emphasize certain projects or grants, whatever it is. But because we have a strong parent support for music, and that I always want to support that. You know, I think that's something unique to a small district, that it does so well. You know, it's a kudos to everyone that is involved, and Barbara Priest is definitely you know, a mover and shaker in that. And then on a sad note, I just want to was come to my attention that one of our high school students is like fighting for her life in Stanford. And I just want everyone to pray for her because it's so serious and just really touches my heart.
Trustee Dr. Hazen? Or-
Yes, thank you so much. And I had two more emails that were mentioned. One just concerns about security and one about the concerns about the risks for young learners in particular. I'll just echo Trustee Shamas's comments that those have been on my mind and heart this past week. Just again, really know that there are many people in the district hoping and praying and thinking that, about these kids that we know will get better. We really, really do. On a bit of a happy note, I was going to mention that I went to the home opener for our local, not high school, but our local soccer team, the Monterey Bay Football Club. And I promise this will be germane when I get to it. But we hosted our East Bay rivals, the Oakland Roots, and they marched in with drums and instruments that were just like drowning out the crowd. But we, as a team and fan base, were saved by the PG High School band that played along with the team band and made sure that the Oakland fans were not the loudest in the stadium. So I think it's really started off. I think the first time I've seen that, but like it was amazing that our band learned the songs, but also just they even had a little back and forth at one point between different parts of the stadium, which was really added to the atmosphere. And MBFC won 3-2, which also helps. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next up is our superintendent report, Dr. Adamson.
Well, thank you so much. So I think I've got 5 items I just wanted to highlight this evening. The first really is under the topic of community engagement. And so a couple of things that have just occurred recently and then things that are upcoming that really allows for us to really hear our community's voice. And when I say our community, I'm talking our students, I'm talking our staff, and I'm talking our families and community members. Last week, we had our Local Control Accountability Plan. That's our LCAP, is the acronym we refer to it as. And that was our parent advisory group. We had representatives from each of our schools come together as a united group last week in the evening, directed by our Director of Educational Services, Dr. Hagquist. And, number one, I was so impressed with the attendance at that event. We had every school represented by multiple parents, and really just the richness of the conversation and the value of the feedback that we were able to receive as a result of that. So I cannot say how grateful we are to each of those families who really represented that evening. And really the feedback that we're gaining as a result of that is going to be reflected in our ongoing 3-year plan for the district, which really drives everything that we do. Next week, we have an upcoming opportunity. That's next Tuesday, March 25th from 6 till 7:30 at the Pacific Grove High School Library. And that is open to our entire community. Once again, that's Tuesday, March 25th. That is our overall community LCAP input forum. So I really do hope you're able to come either in person or we have that option to attend by Zoom. So we're looking forward to seeing many of you there. And once again, your opportunity to have your voice counted in the feedback that we gather. And we have 2 surveys that are out currently. The first is also a survey where we're gathering input on our local control accountability plan. That's open, through the end of the month. And then we also have our facilities master plan survey, which is currently out. And we're going to be we'll do reminders again, at least one more for both of those that we'll send out again via email. But once again, your opportunity to have your voice counted and really help, shape the future of our schools in so many ways. Number 2 is our TK, Transitional Kindergarten and Kindergarten Parent Night, which we have scheduled for next week. That's March 26th, next Wednesday, once again, at Pacific Grove High School. So we're really trying to promote that as much as possible. We also, once again, as a result of some of the feedback we got from our Parent Advisory Council last week, to actually do flyers to all of our elementary students for our LCAP input and also our TK and K Parent Night. So those will be going out, and once again, more reminders. But there too, there's that option to be in person or online. And that was really well attended. We had a library filled with parents last year, and at least, I think, almost over 30 parents online. So we're looking forward to really being able to showcase that again. Number 3 is just general celebrations and highlights, and many have been, really called out by our trustees already. You got to see some of the students themselves from Robert Down from our, recent STEAM and Science Fair night last week. I heard mention about Forest Grove. So actually, yes, there is a STEAM night that they have coming up, and that is, I believe, on Friday, March 28th, next week, from 6 to 8 p.m. So be sure that, you go ahead and attend that. And again, if you missed Robert Downs, this is a chance to to, attend Forest Grove. So definitely looking forward to that. Pacific Grove Middle School had their open house last night, and I've heard several comments about that already. Just kudos to our staff, to Principal Roach and Assistant Principal Tavani. What a turnout. I was approached by so many, I cannot tell you how many fifth grade parents and students approached me while I was there to just say, thank you for that opportunity for them to not only hear directly from both of you. I know there was an event specifically for our incoming sixth graders in the auditorium to share some, great information, but also that ability to really just, sort of peruse the classrooms, get to meet the teachers. And you also had your student leaders there throughout the evening, sort of just directing and giving information. And they did a great job. I asked several questions of them, and wow, I was very impressed. So what a turnout. I agree. The music just added to that, sort of ambience. We were sort of joking here, they were sort of around every little corner. They would sort of jump, they were not jumping out, but, in my mind, right? But wow, again, just really well done. So kudos to you and your staff for, once again, just really showcasing the incredible things that are happening. Let's see. I have congratulations on one of our Pacific Grove High School students at Sulu Garoon that I heard from Principal O'Meara recently, who won first place in the plant sciences category at the recent MCOE Science and Engineering Fair. As a result, she gets to go on and represent our school at the state competition, which comes up in April. So again, we'll be rooting her on, but just the fact, for her to really receive that recognition really speaks to, once again, I think just the incredible opportunities, in our level of rigor and just ability, right, that we're nurturing amongst our students. So we'll be rooting her on for sure. Let's see, I was able to spend a little bit of time at our adult transition program this morning and got to see for myself just some of the great work the students and staff are doing with their recycling program. And that was just really neat. I think as I, got to learn a little bit more, just I was reminded of sort of the goals of that program. It's really about, building independence amongst our students, workplace readiness, teamwork, responsibility. I got to see that all in action and just was so impressed with the level of engagement amongst all of the students. And then last Saturday, I got to visit really enjoy our PG Pops concert. I have not attended one of those yet, and that's really, once again, led by Mrs. Priest. It's a community orchestra for both community members, adult and students, and was just incredibly impressed with, just some of the pieces they put on. My favorite, definitely Pink Panther, and there was the March of the Armed Forces, and it was really neat because we had members in the audience, veterans who got to stand as they, really represented, their own, level of service. So that was really neat to see. Number 4, really just, I think it's been said already, we have a high school student who is, fighting for her life currently. And the reason I want to just share is, what's been represented to me is the incredible, and we talk about community all the time. And what I've been able to see firsthand is how our community comes together in support of, our students and families. I've been just unbelievably touched by the level of support from both the middle and the high school, really just wrapping their arms around to give that support to the families, and really from the staff in wanting to, do everything they can to band together. So again, we've said it, but continuing to just, keep that family and that incredible student in our thoughts. And then really just closing, I just want to reach out and finish with a word of gratitude and thank you for. We talk about community. I've said that already, but that has been so indicative these last few weeks. I've been, had unbelievable amounts of contact, whether it's by email, whether it's in person, whether it's by phone call, with so many of our students, our staff, and our family members and community members. And really, again, it speaks to just who we are as a community. And there's a strength, there's a resilience about us. There's a sense of just wanting to really come together when we need solutions. And that is, our community has spoken in so many ways these past few weeks. And I just, once again, and reminding myself daily of how fortunate I feel to be superintendent of this district and how proud I am to be a member of this incredible community, because it is an impressive community and just makes me proud. So with that, I'll return it back to you, Acting President McNary.
Thank you for your report. Safety report, Assistant Superintendent Jordan.
Thank you. So I'll be brief tonight. Just quickly, the substance abuse awareness education program, supplemental education, which is the initial replacement for DARE at our 5th grade level, has been currently implemented at the lesson plans are currently being implemented with consultation of our counselors and our school resource officer. But on that note, we're still looking to expand the DARE replacement, and the district's currently working to obtain approval through an alternative curriculum with the National Association of School Resource Officers. The program is called Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence. It's called the LEAD program. It's nationally recognized, and really some highlights are it is TK through 12. It's not just focused on grades 5 and 6. It does have a parent component, which is an assessment and evaluation for its effectiveness from the families that the students are bringing this information home. And the LEAD program is evidence-based and it's vetted through professional agencies, and the curriculum is reviewed annually and updated annually. So more to come on that, just giving you some highlights that the district hasn't selected, but we're working through the process right now of reviewing that with, as I mentioned, the National Association of School Resource Officers and Pacific Grove Police Department. And that's my update for the night. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next is public comment, and I'm going to read this before we get started. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to board action on each item. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are kindly asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per item pursuant to board policy. Speakers will be called sequentially until there is no speaker coming forward on the agenda item or the amount of time allocated for that item has elapsed, whichever comes first. And please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment, and the board may choose to direct items to staff and admin for action or a future agenda. And with that, we will begin with community member public comments on non-agenda items. If there is anyone in the room or anyone online. Okay. Seeing none. I will move forward into PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items.
I just wanted to make a comment that last week was National Maintenance Worker Appreciation Day on Friday, and the schools just gushed on my 4 maintenance guys. And I just personally wanted to come up front here and just say thank you for loving on those guys. They work really hard, just 4 for the whole district. And they were just overwhelmed. Our shop is just plastered with all the artwork the kids did for them. It was wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else wishing to give a public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board specifically requests an item to be discussed or removed from consent. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. We have our consent agenda as presented with the addition of a walk-on item this evening. That was item K. Thank you. And that was a walk-on out of county travel item for PGHS JV softball tournament, which the board has in their binders. With that, I will first go out to public comment on consent as presented. Okay, and next is board discussion. Does anyone want to pull anything or discuss anything?
Yeah, I wanted to pull J, not that I need to make any changes to it. I just wanted to add a couple of comments to this memorandum for the student teaching agreement.
Okay, We can put J as our first action discussion item then, since we're going to be taking it off the consent agenda, and we can approve it that way. Are you comfortable with that? Okay. So we will, any other board comment or discussion on consent? Dr. Hazen, I'm seeing shaking head. Okay. With that then, is there a motion to approve consent without item J?
I so move.
Okay, motion made by trustee Shamas, second. I'll second the motion. We are doing a roll call vote on all of our items this evening because we have someone joining us remotely. Dr. Adamson.
Of course, President Dr. Hazen.
Yeah.
Acting President Clerk McNary.
Aye.
Trustee Wax.
Aye.
And Trustee Shamas.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. And then we will move on now to, what should we call it? Action A1 or AA? I don't, how would staff like to?
Let's make it the last action item, but I think we'll start with it, right? Yeah, so I think if we were to do.
Oh, as far as the lettering.
D.
Understood.
Yeah.
So we will call it action item D and we will start with it before we do action item A. Okay. So new action item D, which will be first, is the MOU Memorandum of Understanding with CSUMB and trustee Shamas. Go ahead.
Yeah, I read through the whole thing and it's a student teaching and it says that we've done this before. Every 5 years, we renew it. So I just I was talking to Dr. Adamson about it. One of the things that I didn't see on there was kind of highlighting classroom management strategies as part of the teaching that would go on when a student teacher is in the classroom. And Dr. Addison was telling me that it is there. It's just, I didn't see it there. And maybe you could clarify that, Buck. I just wanted to know about it.
Happy to do that. One of the things, all of the, student teaching programs, around the state are built on, and especially at CSUMB, are the California standards for the teaching profession. And standard number 2 really focuses on classroom management and gives very specific elements of that standard that teachers are to focus on. So while there is classroom, instruction at CSUMB about classroom management strategies for our student teachers, the real practical application of that comes from their experience in the classroom with our mentor teachers. And I think that anyone who's had the good fortune of going around any of our classrooms from class to class really see excellent classroom management in action, in those classes. And so part of the learning process for those students is to try some of the classroom strategies that are currently being used in a mentor teacher's class, and then also have that ability to experiment with maybe something that they learned at CSUMB. So while it might not be explicitly stated in that memorandum of understanding, it still remains, well, as you know, the cornerstone to good teaching. If you don't have classroom management, then learning isn't able to happen. And so it is absolutely a cornerstone of this program.
Yes. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to hear just more about it, because when I was taking my teaching credential and doing my student teaching, yeah, it was kind of a hodgepodge and not very well laid out about classroom management strategies. And then some schools would have, they would go into one fad of how to do it, and then that would be dropped. And so I felt after getting my credential that I wasn't as prepared as I would have liked to have been to deal with, how to control a classroom and get cooperation and all of that. So I just was interested in that. And one other thing too is when I was doing my student teaching, the principal at the elementary school that was I was working at just called me in one day and said, I'm going to do a mock interview with you. And I thought that was so helpful, and it wasn't part of our terms, and so I was just throwing that out there for any, of the principals that might, but that was so helpful to have like a mock interview with this principal that kind of gave me some information about how I would, when I go out and apply for a teaching job, what to expect. And so
I had something similar. It wasn't so much a mock interview, but it was sort of a formal conversation in the principal's office, so that you had to have that experience of being able to answer questions under a little bit of pressure, and I found that valuable as well too. So yeah, excellent, something that we can consider.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Trustee Shamas. I see Dr. Hazen has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, since it's okay, Buck. No question to be answered. I was just going to say, since this item was pulled, I just wanted to give a special shout out to Mrs. Catherine, who goes by Mrs. K, who's the CSUMB student teacher in Mrs. Payan's class. And I can't tell you, almost every day I hear about something amazing she's done from Griffin. So it really is, a program that adds so much to our schools. Even just having another, young teacher in the classroom, it's closer to the kids' age that they can, share slang words with, all good slang words, is really beneficial. So
that's a really good point. Okay, with that, Trustee Shamas, would you like to make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that we approve the MOU with CSUMB student teaching agreement.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Trustee Shamas and seconded by Trustee Wax, and roll call vote, please. Actually, Student Trustee Powley, I totally missed you on consent, and I'm sorry. Would you like to weigh in about our memorandum of understanding for student teachers with CSUMB? No comment. Okay. Thank you. I will do better moving forward. And with that, we'll get your vote first. Student trustee vote?
Aye.
Okay, and we have a motion on the floor and a second and a roll call vote now.
Yes, President Dr. Hazen.
Aye.
Acting President Clerk McNary.
Aye.
Trustee Wax.
Aye.
And Trustee Shamas.
Aye.
Okay, and that passes 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chief Rogaman. Next up on our action discussion agenda is going to be our 24-25 second interim report, and that is Assistant Superintendent Jorn.
Thank you very much, board, community, and Lewis is going to go ahead and queue up the presentation. So just quickly to tee it up for you, throughout the fiscal year, we have various funds that reflect the changing fiscal conditions of our school district based on board decisions, community input, and fiscal impact. Primary budget revisions are brought forward in October. We call that our October revision, which then does become our October budget. This is done primarily to update beginning fund balances from the prior fiscal year after unaudited actuals have been approved by the board in September. And then we have budget reporting windows. One is the first interim window from July 1st through December 31st. And the second is what we're sharing tonight, which is July 1st through January 31st, 2025. The governing board must certify the district is either able to meet its financial obligations for the current fiscal and 2 subsequent years or not, with a qualified negative or negative certification. Based on our current multi-year projections, the PGUSD school district will meet its financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent fiscal years. Next slide, Lewis. So the second interim report reflects the following conditions: property tax projections 24-25 that have been revised by the county tax assessor's office. As I mentioned before, our unaudited actual ending fund balances from the prior fiscal year have been rolled forward into our current fiscal year. Staffing position changes within position control have been adjusted, and payroll encumbrances have been recorded and reconciled. And restricted resources and site donation accounts ending fund balance have been posted to our 24-25, from our 23-24 to our 24-25 beginning fund balance. Pacific Grove Unified is a basic aid community funded school district, and the primary source of revenue is local property taxes, which exceeds the state's local control formula entitlement. And for our school district, if you notice, the LCFF entitlement for this year would be just under 21 million. And our district's revenue limit projections for this year are just under 40 million. And that is why we are a community funded basic aid school district. Next slide. This is just a summary breakdown of the general fund combined. That's our restricted and our unrestricted combined revenue and expenditures. Our beginning fund balance here posted at the top. You can see no change whatsoever to our beginning fund balance. We can take a look next at revenues. There's been a change in revenue of just over $100,000 increased revenue. And I will note that this is not related to property tax projections. This is tied to categorical funding and not our property taxes. The current snapshot at second interim of property taxes, which I'll get into in more detail in a bit, is down as we wait our April tax receipts. And just for those that are following along online and have the board packet, if you refer to page 79 in the board packet, that is our SACS report for the which is filed with the county office and the California Department of Education. And under the section secured tax rolls, LCFF sources, you'll see the actual total is just over 19.8 million during second interim reporting, and that's down around 0.5% from what we have projected in our adopted budget, our revised budget, and at first interim reporting. Next, we're taking a look at expenditures, total expenditures for the district at the revised adopted budget. In October, we had expenditures projected at just over 49.5 million. At second interim, we now reflect a projected increase of just over 500,007, or it's 507,708. You can see it in the right-hand column there. This is primarily associated with balancing our restricted balances, or restricted resource balances with expenditures. As I mentioned previously, many of our restricted accounts are expiring, and we have to balance expenditures with revenue so that we don't lose the revenue when that restricted resource expires. Some of those restricted resources expired last year, some this year, and then some in the out year. Finally, on this slide, second interim will review the district's reserve balances and the data from the SACS form submitted to the county office, as I mentioned before, on page 79 in the packet. With the heading ending fund balances and committed and assigned, shows that PGUSD must ensure that we're able to meet our financial obligations, both associated with monthly liabilities and through economic downturns. That's why we maintain a reserve, and the reserve balance is shown broken down on page 80 in your packet. As a basic aid district, our funding is based annually on assessed valuation of properties within our district boundary area. The AV tends to fluctuate a bit from year to year. There's a variety of reasons associated with that. Some are associated with economic downturns, housing market changes, mortgage interest rates, homeowners exemptions, which is something that was discussed last week with our county, especially as it relates to our boundary area and Cromwell Unified, with there being many exemptions that are being reviewed by the county. Therefore, the districts aren't able to realize that levied property tax in real time until those exemptions are approved by the county. And that's something that's taking place in our boundary area. Related to the district reserves under Ed Code 42-127.01E, it actually requires all school districts in the state of California to have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainty. That's also shown on page 80. For basic aid school districts, though, many times, in fact, almost every basic aid school district I know of has a board policy associated with a minimum reserve. For example, our neighbors, it's 5%. That's their minimum. That's 2% above the statutory obligation. Historically, PG Unified has maintained a two-digit reserve, a low two-digit reserve, and we're now in the single-digit reserve balance, as you can see here on the very bottom. Not a big substantive change from first to second interim. We're down 0.1% from 8.9 to 8.8%. Just as an example, our neighbors carry a 26.53% reserve at first interim, which is also a basic aid school district. I think it's good for comparative purposes to share that. PGUSD does reflect the reduction in our reserve, leaving our reserve balance at $5,328,326, which is actually our calculated projected ending fund balance for 24-25. Next slide. So the district, oh, we lost everything. Go back. Oh, okay. Well, I'll just talk through it. The district does receive, go back a slide, Lewis. That's the pie chart. I'll talk through the pie chart. The blue is 39,654,953. Those are our LCFF sources combined. And that's predominantly property taxes. It's also our local control funding formula base. The district receives an LCFF base along with its local property taxes. The next large slice of the pie there, we'll go with the beige slice of the pie, is our state sources. That's 3,612,998. The next source, which would be the darker blue, is our local sources, 2,641,775. And a lot of that's attributed to, as I've mentioned previously, the special education local planning area money that the district receives from the County Office of Education. And then finally, the very small sliver over there in the corner, the green, is our federal sources of just under $670,000 as projected for this fiscal year. As you can see, both state sources and federal sources, if you would have tuned in first interim, have slightly been reduced since first interim in our projections, and that's something that the district needs to monitor closely. Next slide. So general fund expenditures on this slide, you can see we've illustrated via the pie chart with labels that actually show up in the presentation. Our certificated salaries there in the blue, just around 41% of our overall expenditures are tied to certificated salaries. Classified salaries at 20%, employee benefits at 25%. There's been an uptick there in the employee benefits since first interim to second interim. And then the other fluctuation that's been tied to the employee benefits increase is really just filling of vacancies and so forth. Actuals being shared from the unaudited actuals in September, basically allowing us to determine where we're going to land with open enrollment and potentially people taking on new increased healthcare policies or expanded for new employees in our district. Next slide. On the slide, I'll try to walk you through it. This is maintained in our budget book, and that's on our website. And we have maintained a budget book, which is very in detail since 2015-16. A couple of predecessors of mine put this together. There's a lot of information on that in that budget book. You can find it under the business documents section under our webpage. But I'm going to just kind of highlight the red area tonight. You'll notice the arrows from 24-25 column in the 24-25 column that shows the changes from first interim to second interim. You'll notice, as I mentioned previously, no change in beginning fund balances on the restricted and unrestricted side. Nominal changes in revenue. You can see those are reflected as an increase of just over $100,000 in revenue over first interim. Making our way down to expenditures, we're again looking at certificated salaries through other and outgoing expenditures. I'll give you the changes overall. Certificated salaries decreased by $238,000. Classified salaries increased by just under $100,000. Benefits increased by $461,588. Substantive change in benefits. The net increase over first interim was an increase of $316,000. And then just some notes here. The STIRS contribution rate is still flat at 19.1%, and the CalPERS rate is slated to increase up to 27.05% in 25-26. And that is the district's maintaining of a percentage towards pensions. Let's see. Some other quick notes on the district's obligations. State unemployment insurance rate has no change at 0.5%. Workers' comp has no change at 2.77%. And I covered STIRS and PERS. You can see under books and supplies there, that is, third of the way down the page. Under books and supplies, we did have an increase of just over $84,000. Services and other increased by just over $100,000, and the district now projects additional expenditures based on, as I mentioned previously, the restricted carryover funds, and this is predominantly tied to Arts Music Program, which is formerly Prop 28. I use the term Resource 6770, but we'll call it Prop 28. Music Arts Discretionary, that was another restricted program where the ending fund balances were rolled forward, and we had to develop an expenditure plan to spend that down before it expires. ELOP, kitchen infrastructure grants, and our site-specific donation accounts. So the resulting net operating deficit for the district down midway through the page, you can see has increased for the fiscal year, which is now projected at $3,341,391. You can see that right there. And the way that we break it down in the red and the black is unrestricted versus restricted. You can see both the restricted went up and the unrestricted also went up. So down at the bottom, you will see an assigned components of ending fund balance. Thank you, Lewis. The district has, as I mentioned, projected an 8.8% reserve. We have a projected beginning fund balance for 25-26, but ending fund balance for this fiscal year of $4,355,560 on the unrestricted side and $967,977 on the restricted side. And we do have a positive certification, as I mentioned, with the projected ending fund balance of just over 5.3 million. To the right of the red circle is our multi-year projections. You can see 25-26 and 26-27. The MYPs are also included in the board packet. Those are the SACS forms, pages 130 through 135. And they are assumptions described on the far right are associated with increase to step and column, increase to goods and services, increase to programmatic need, and or decrease associated. So those are our projections, which are built into our first, second interim reporting, as well as budget adoption. And what I use when preparing multi-year projections is information that I obtained from the California Department of Education, the Legislative Analyst's Office. We receive information from school services, the Department of Finance, MCOE. There's a lot that goes into building multi-year projections. And I just wanted to make a note of that it is kind of a collaborative process with the entities in the state of California that support school districts. I'm going to pause right there.
Trustee Shamos?
Josh, do you know what the difference is over the years between our books and materials funds? I mean, have we saved any money by using all, shifting over to our computers, or are we still buying the same amount of heavy textbooks? And
so I would just say that you have online, you have digital resources and hard copied resources. I haven't done an assessment on the cost associated with increase or decrease, but I would say that the learning material and the curriculum is more expansive than we've ever had.
Yeah.
And this district's been pretty aggressive. I know in the past few years, and particularly moving forward with the adoption of new curriculum. We've been very fortunate with some of the restricted dollars the district has received since COVID to have an aggressive approach to replenishment of our curriculum. So, but I can get back to the board as it relates to like the percentage increase.
I just wonder, well, you're purchasing online materials too, right? But did that equal over to all of the textbooks that we purchased before? Pretty much?
Good question, and I'd have to get back to the board on that. Appreciate the question. Yeah.
This is kind of on the spot, so forgive me, but for the projections versus the actuals over time, is the actual any sort of consistent percent above the budgeted or that sort of thing?
What I would say is we have been very diligent about trying to tighten up encumbrances. So encumbrances meaning, for example, vacancies held in the budget of unfilled position, reducing those from the budget at first and second interim or at the October budget revision is something we've done to try to eliminate encumbrances. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that those vacancies are being eliminated from the budget or from the district. It's just that this district in the past did carry over year vacancies that were unfilled, which I think artificially hyperinflated expenditures. So I would say that certainly in the last 3 to 4 years, this district has been very good about tightening up those carry forward encumbrances. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's certainly something we're working on, because what did happen in the past was at the unaudited actuals closing of the books, you're right. There was a large difference, sometimes small difference between what the projections were in the adopted budget and where the actuals actually came in. I would suggest that we've tightened that up quite a bit. Percentage wise, I would have to get back to you if I looked at a year over year. we try to target within 1%. I will say that that's the target. Oftentimes that's not realized, but eliminating encumbrances that may be holding up dollars, I think, is the way that we attempt to tighten that percentage up between actuals and projections.
Any other questions, Dr. Hazen, before we move on?
Yes, just really quickly, two things. I feel a bit like I'm beating the drum on this, but you brought up the reserve, and just to mention again, I know it's something we're going to be addressing down the road as a board, but we have all discussed this idea as, a double-digit reserve for a basic aid school district is a good thing. So, it might be worth us, again, just making sure to think about codifying that through some of our board policy. The second point I was just going to ask quickly, I am not an economist by any means, and so I'm going to rely on you, Josh, not calling you an economist, but much more of one than I am. About, I saw the property tax decrease estimates right now from, I think, 5.25 to 4.75 in the cover sheet. Is, recognizing that's also not final numbers, but how would a potential recession affect these property taxes? Because my understanding, it's more resilient than some other sources, but just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say that as it relates to the property tax projections at our current snapshot, remember that's through January 31st. That just means that the December property tax receipts did come a little bit lower than projected. We may make that up and more in April tax receipts, but we won't know until May. So that's just something to note. There were some delays as I met with the county tax assessor's office last week. And as I mentioned, the homeowners exemptions are delayed property tax receipts for us. That's not going to make up that difference. But throughout the year, we do see small amounts of property tax come in, but predominantly it's December and April. So we are anticipating the April tax receipts will level us up to 5% or 5.25%, which was in the original projections. And that's the answer to the first question. And I just got lost on the second part of the question.
The second, does a recession affect these numbers at all? I mean, do we have something we should be thinking about for future budget?
That would be a conversation I would be having, that our school district and our neighboring community funded school district would be having with the county tax assessor's office and the county controller. I wouldn't want to speak to that tonight, but we've had really good hard and fast projections from them, which aren't finalized until July. So, when we're looking at multi-year projections, I am assuming, let's just say, and that's what it's built in, is a 5% year-over-year increase to property taxes. But yes, a recession could potentially impact that 5% year-over-year. But we will know in July, which is after we adopt a budget, we will know in July what the county tax assessor's office has realized in assessed valuation growth and where their projections are for us to properly build our budget. So that being said, if there are changes, we do have a point in time, which is our October budget revision, to make those changes. We make changes to expenditures in October. We make changes to carry forward balances, and at that time, we could make adjustments in revenue if revenue isn't being realized as projected when we adopt a budget in June.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a good reminder of the timeline and how transparent the whole process is. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, Lewis, next slide. So quickly, we'll just talk about cash flow. This is important for community funded districts to be aware of that. Again, our district receives 80% around of its revenue through property taxes. But every year between May and December, that's a pretty big window of time where we just don't have an influx of revenue. We're not receiving local control funding formula apportionments every single month at the same amount that we can rely upon for our district to maintain covering its liabilities. So this district does participate in a cash pool resource known as a tax revenue anticipation note. This district's been doing this for a very, very long time. And really what that tax revenue anticipation note does for this district is it bridges that gap between realized revenue in April, all of the expenditures we have between April and December, and when we get that big receipt of taxes in December. The cash flow presented tonight is in the board packet. It's on page 126 through 129. And it does indicate at second interim, the district will meet its cash obligations as a result of the tax revenue anticipation note. Next slide, Lewis. Okay, so that was all tied to the general fund, the unrestricted and the restricted general fund. We call it the general fund combined. Now I'm going to just try to go through some of the other funds the district has There's quite a few, but I did summarize them in the board cover, and I basically summarized them here tonight on the slide. So first and foremost, our ASB fund, that's Fund 08. The district did not carry a Fund 08 in our SACS financial management software until about a year ago. We adopted that because ASB is basically tracked outside of the financial management system. But we do have reporting on it that we do now at interim, and I would like to report that it's a self-sustained fund. Of course, it does not receive unrestricted general fund revenue to support it, and the beginning fund balance is $415,462. I don't have expenditures and revenue in here because that's tracked in ASB Works, which is a separate system, and it's not reportable to the state. Fund 11, same slide. This is our adult education program for adults 18 and over. The revenues in this fund are derived from federal, state, and local resources and adult education fees for tuition. Expenditures are typically for direct instructional costs, direct support costs, and indirect support costs. Just like Fund 08, Fund 11 is a self-sustained fund on its own. It receives no general fund contribution. At second interim, the beginning fund balance is just over 2.7 million. There's no change. Revenues increased a bit, just over 77,000 in revenue. Our expenditures have decreased by 1.6 million, just over 1.6 million. And I talk about this at every interim reporting. The adult education fund 11 has to match its expenditures with maintaining a lower, less than a 20% reserve. So we project expenditures, and oftentimes we have to pull back those projections, and that's kind of what we're doing here at the end, or not the end of the fiscal year, but through second interim. And that's why we see a substantive decrease now between now and the end of the fiscal year. There will be more expenditures associated with Fund 11, and then when we report it unaudited actuals, we'll really see what that change between projected and adopted budget is and where we landed at the end of the fiscal year. The deficit did decrease. We had a projected deficit and it did go down. And again, that's based on the reduction of expenditures. We can report an ending fund balance of just over 1.7 million in adult ed Fund 11. Next slide. We have our child development fund. This is Fund 12. This accounts for education and other services related to infant, toddlers, preschoolers before and after school, or the Monarch program. Enrichment programs and grant related activities. The primary source of revenue is state apportionments based on participation, federal and state grants, and then parent tuition fees. The expenditures in this fund are primarily tied to salary and benefits associated with the folks that work for our early childhood education programs. And just like Fund 11, it is a self-sustained fund that does not receive a general fund contribution. The changes since first interim, beginning fund balance, no change. Revenue, we did have an increase of 64, just a little over 64,000. The expenditures also increased by around $122,000, and the deficit increased due to the increased expenditures. However, the ending fund balance I would like to report is self-sustained, has decreased a little bit by 16,000, but we're holding a just over $100,000 ending fund balance projected to carry forward into the next fiscal year. Fund 13, this is our district's nutrition services program fund. This is for breakfast and lunch and snacks for the district. It generates, this fund generates revenue from state reimbursements, our universal meals program, which is the program that was instated when the feds cut the national federal program. This fund, similar to the other four funds before this, is self-sustained. It does not receive a unrestricted or restricted general fund contribution. Changes since second interim, the beginning fund balance, no change, just over 1.7 million in beginning fund balance. Revenue has increased by just over $5,000, but you can see projected revenue at just over 1.6 or 1.5 million. We do show a surplus in this fund, so we are not deficit spending. We have a small surplus that has decreased because of the increase in expenditures. Ideally, we do not want to continue to maintain a surplus. I know that's something that you don't normally hear a CBO say, but as it relates to Fund 13, you cannot carry, we can only carry a certain amount of reserve balance, similar to Fund 11, which I mentioned earlier. We do have a projected ending fund balance of just over 1.2 million for the fiscal year. Next slide. Fund 14 is our deferred maintenance fund, and this is a fund used for major deferred maintenance projects in our district. The expenditures are intended for major repairs such as plumbing, heating, electrical, roofing, painting, and related systems. This fund was a fund that was not maintained for a very long time, and the board did 2.5 years ago at a budget adoption in October, direct staff to begin the $200,000 general fund contribution from the unrestricted general fund, which has helped sustain this fund and grow this fund, but it also has helped with many of the repair needs we've needed in this district outside of Measure D. Second interim changes since first interim. You can see that the beginning fund balance had no change, just over 536,000. The revenue increased by a small amount, just over 3,518. Expenditures, we have no change. We're following our adopted expenditure plan, and there's been no change in expenditures. The deficit did decrease by the increase in revenue by $3,518. And as you can see, the ending fund balance here is being sustained at just over 460,000. And as I'd like to mention, that's far off from, I think, when I started in this district, we held a $28,000 beginning fund balance. So important to note. Really nothing to discuss about Fund 20. This is a post-employment benefit fund. I say this every single time. We cannot inter-fund transfer any of this money. It was established. It has to maintain basically a beginning balance in here. So essentially no changes associated with Fund 20. It's just a fund that we have to maintain statutorily. And we're no longer contributing to that fund. Okay, next we have funds 21 and 25. 21 is our general obligation bond. That's our voter approved debt. And that carries Measure A, Measure D, and then in the future, we'll carry Measure B. In this fund, we bring in tax voter approved debt. We release multiple series, which is our revenue source. This past year, we released an $8.7 million Measure D Series C, and we anticipate releasing a Measure D Series D in the fall. Some of the changes from first interim, you can see no change to the beginning fund balance there of just over 2.4 million. The revenue, of course, increased. That is our bond sale. You see the 8,756,000. That was the Series C bond sale. Expenditures did increase by just over 718,000 due to the district's projects priority list that was approved by this board that Director Anderson brought forward in the fall. We do that every fall. You can see that the surplus did go down a little bit because of the increase in expenditures, but we're still carrying a nice ending fund balance of just over $4 million. And note that I did discuss the release of Series D this fall. That's because the project priority list that we have is in excess of $4 million right now. So we'll need to tap into that additional revenue next fiscal year. Okay, Fund 25. This is also a new fund we've been reporting on this year. This is a developer fee fund that was established last year when the board adopted the levying of developer fees. This fund is self-sustained. It's sustained through developer fee collections. The district has no current expenditure plan for use associated with this fund. Right now, we're just collecting developer fees, and developer fees can be used in concert with general obligation fund projects. Cannot be used for any other specific needs of the district. So when the district does develop and the board does approve its facilities master plan, these are dollars that are set aside to help kind of bolster the program associated with modernization or growth in our district. You can see the beginning fund balance had no change since first interim, just over 36,000. Revenue has increased by 66,000, and we do show a increase to surplus associated with revenue. And our ending fund balance right now is just over 173,000. So from 0 to 173,000 in about 18 months, we're tracking pretty well there. And again, this is very helpful for any of the modernization projects and growth projects, a program within this school district that we can utilize to pair with bond funds. Next slide, Lewis. This is our capital projects fund, Fund 40. This is primarily for facility improvements and capital improvements more than deferred maintenance. It has to be something that we're going to purchase that could be an asset that depreciates essentially. So if you're going to buy a portable, for example, this fund was used years ago to buy a lot of the portables in this school district or carry the lease of those portables in this for this district. Similar to Fund 14, the board approved a $200,000 unrestricted general fund contribution for this year. And because of that, we now are able to carry some project expenditures in there. We have a hefty beginning fund balance of $865,000, which was much lower in previous years. The revenue of $292,047 decreased a little bit, and that was tied to interest. I will note that predominantly the revenue, aside from the general fund transfer, comes from our lease of the Monterey Bay Charter School. We are showing an increase in deficit associated with the increase in expenditures and an ending fund balance of just over $750,000. So Fund 40 is looking pretty good. The next slide. This is just something I included as a reference point for anybody online who had this in the packet. And this really just breaks down every one of the forms. There's a lot that goes into these packets. I'm saying a lot of numbers and information, but it's all broken down here in our SACS forms, which are included in the packet, which starts on page 61 and then goes all the way through page 175. Everything I spoke to tonight that was included in the presentation and included in the cover page can be found in every one of the SACS forms that are submitted to the county office for approval, and that our board will sign tonight, certifying the interim reporting. Next slide. I like to end with the district overview. Again, I take no credit for this. This was built by my predecessors. This is the last page in the 177-page budget book this district maintains and publishes at every single report: first interim, second interim, budget adoption, and October revision. The information, some highlights to include up here. You can see on the left-hand side, well, we've got our entire enrollment demographic at the top. Down on the left-hand side in the middle, we have our beginning fund balance, revenues, expenditures kind of broken down. In the middle there, property tax revenue trends. You can see the revenue trends that this district has seen since 2016-17, from 5.84% to 5.65% realized last year. And as I mentioned before, we're tracking right around 4.75 this year, but we did have a projected property tax revenue in our budget of 5.25. Just below that, you can see the general fund reserve trends from 2016-17 to current. You can see that we went from 17.4% to 8.9%. On the right-hand side, STRS rates and PERS rate increases over the years. The district, I would say, has been very fortunate in the leveling of STRS rate increases, but unfortunately, PERS rate increases have been growing rapidly, and there's question about sustainability associated with that. As you can see, 13.9% to 27.3% is a pretty steep climb in that short period of time. And then at the bottom are free and reduced meals and are the testing information. That's something that I won't update now. I update at the end of the year once we're through all of our testing, but that's something we like to include in the budget book as well. I believe with that, I will open it up for questions, and that's the end of my presentation tonight.
Thank you for that presentation. And as you said, I think there's a really useful summary at the beginning of the staff report, and then the very, very detailed long report follows if anyone is interested in getting in there. I'll start with trustee Dr. Hazen online. Actually,
I asked my
wait.
questions in the middle, so but yes.
I'm gonna pause you because I need to go out to public comment before we start board discussion. So any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, Dr. Hazen, you have the floor.
Yes, none from me.
Okay.
Assistant Superintendent Jordan answered my questions at the midpoint.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from trustees? Yes, trustee Shamas.
Why is there a surplus in the cafeteria fund?
Well, part of it has, I'm sorry, I tend to eat the microphone. Part of it has to do with grants that we have received that we haven't matched expenditures with. The funding source from Universal Meals has been, generous associated with the meals that we provide our students. You can also see that there's been growth in that area. Robert and his team, I just sing their praises every single time that we can. They are growing the menu. So where I'm going with this is, we may see increased expenditures to reduce that surplus. That's the plan. And how we're doing that is growing our labor force, growing our offerings, growing satellite locations for food service at the sites. And that's something that we have to monitor because similar to Fund 11, as I mentioned, we cannot carry such a substantive reserve in that fund.
Trustee Wax?
What? Oh, sorry. Is there a practical reason for the ASB funds being in a different system? It just seems complicated.
Yeah, and actually, you're right. It actually is complicated. Yeah, but that is actually a California State CSAM audit guide requirement for us to keep them separate. So that's the short answer. What I would say is that our folks at the sites are well trained. They go through annual audits, financial audits, just like our general fiscal and financial systems do. I would just say that the findings have been basically nothing over the years. There's been small and material findings associated with ASB reconciliation, but that's just what we're obligated to do. So, but we do maintain oversight. I mean, we maintain oversight over all of the financials in our district, but they have to be separated.
Yeah, it just seems switching to a whole nother thing.
Yeah, the irony there too is that I mean, we're dealing with it now. Sometimes there are expenditures that get paid for out of ASB that should have been paid for out of the unrestricted general fund, and then we have to basically do a direct payment to the ASB account instead of simply just recoding it in our financial management system, which is called a journal entry. So that's something that we have to do, and it does complicate things, but they have to be kept separate.
And then, out of curiosity, I think it's funds 12 and 13. What happens if we do carry over like a certain balance? I mean, you may not know that, or
I can. So Fund 11, they receive revenue through it. So Fund 11 receives revenue through a consortium. A portion of the revenue does, and the percentage that was established. So essentially, in Fund 11, if we continue to carry too much of a reserve forward in Fund 11, the overage will be reallocated back to the consortium. So that's with Fund 11. And then Fund 13, we have time. It's not a matter of well, it is actually, we're attempting to implement increased expenditures. So there could be a penalty imposed, there could be a reduction of revenue imposed, but we're nowhere near having that discussion right now. So it's just something we have to keep our eye on.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for getting this all together. It seems horribly daunting. So good job.
Thank you for your comments. You answered my question about the developer fees and just what we were going to be allowed to use those funds for in the future, just in terms of budget planning, but I think I understand now for facilities and those types of projects. Either way. You answered my question, so thank you. And I think just in terms of the report, we're set up to receive a positive certification, and that's what this board needs to see to be able to move forward with approving the report this evening. Is there any other comments from the trustees? Yep. Anything else from the board, student trustee? Anything to add? Okay. I think that rounds up our discussion. Is there a motion on this item? We did public comment, I believe, before board discussion, but thank you for checking.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the second interim as presented.
Okay, motion made by trustee Dr. Hazen.
Second the motion.
Thank you. And a second by trustee Wax. Roll call vote, please.
We'll start with our student board rep.
Oh,
William.
Thank you, Linda.
Aye.
Thank you, William. President Dr. Hazen.
Aye.
Acting President Clerk McNary.
Aye.
Trustee Wax.
Aye.
And Trustee Shamalis.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Jordan, and your whole team over there in the fiscal office. Our next item on action discussion tonight is the adoption of Amplify M-Class Reading Difficulty Screener, and this item is Dr. Hagquist. Oh, student trustee Polly, would you like to be excused for the evening at this time? You're welcome to go if you'd like. Yeah? Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah? Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Director of Educational Services, here with our Mary Quindamel, and she is our intervention specialist. We are two representatives of the team that got together to select the screening tool that we're presenting tonight. We also were joined by Principal Abby Arbrun and Principal Emily Cy Brownfield. We consulted with the Chartwell Teaching Institute as well as MCOE on this selection process. So we're here to recommend that the board support our recommendation for adopting Amplify's DIBELS 8 with M-Class. And the purpose for this presentation is so that we can adopt the new screening tool so we can comply with the new ed code. Every LEA needs to adopt a screening tool by June 30th, 2025. And so we're well ahead of that deadline, but we would like to do that so we can begin kind of working with the instrument. We also need to implement a reading screening program by the beginning of next year, 2025-2026 school year. So we wanted to update the board on where we are with that and to remind the board that we already have a robust screening process for reading difficulties that well exceeds what the new law requires. So the adoption of this instrument is going to help us to continue to strengthen the comprehensive system of student support that we currently have. As I mentioned, we already have a screening process. We've had this process in place for over 2 decades. It's important to note that the new law requires screening for children ages K through 2. Our program screens children from K all the way through 5 using the DIBELS 8 screener. And that DIBELS 8 with M-Class is just an upgrade to that screener that adds the digital element. This is a reminder that we screen 3 times a year, and the new law requires 1 time a year screening. The last time we adopted DIBELS was in 2018-19. That was the 8th edition. It's important that this tool is well vetted, and we attended several training sessions to look at the various tools. And this one, as it notes here, draws from national percentiles from a sample of over 2 million, almost 3 million students. So it's well vetted for validity and reliability. And the data that it provides is very useful to our team. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. This is a list of the screeners. There's actually a list of 4 screeners that were adopted by the state, but only 3 of them are viable for our district because one of the screeners adopted by the state doesn't include kindergarten. So these are the 3 that we had to choose from, and our team chose M-Class, and we want to share a little bit about that program here with you tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to Mary to talk a little bit about this screener. I can.
Okay. All right. So M-Class with Edition 8 fully complies with the new ed code as stated, being a state-approved screener. It updates our current screener with additional measures in listening, comprehension, spelling, and rapid automatized naming. Those 3 tests are the part of the upgrade, and what they do is they provide additional information to basically red flag for a risk of dyslexia, which is really important. Okay. Why M-Class? Sorry. It's a universal screener measuring foundational early literacy skills. Classroom reporting analyzes student data to identify and prioritize deficit skills to target, which will help in grouping so the teachers can look at that and they can make small group instructions to target a specific skill with that information. Also, the student history, even currently right now, which is one of the big reasons also for Dibbles, is that we can run a report on a student that has been in our district, and we can run it and have that data from when they first started. And that data is really, really important, especially if we want to look at that, if we are contemplating that the student may need to go to assessment because maybe intervention isn't working or being able to close that that gap. So the student history is really important. Home Connect, which we don't have now, but with the M class, there is a Home Connect. There's a parent letter that will go out, and it basically explains where your child is in their reading development. It also recommends activities that they can do at home to help their student. Besides the home letter, there is also a parent portal, and it's available in both English and Spanish. And that parent portal also gives like resources and different activities and ideas that they can do with their student if they so choose. All right, next one. And my final slide. This basically shows like what we do. We assess the skills, we identify the risk, we provide instruction depending on those well below skills. We progress monitor. Currently in intervention, we use the progress monitoring. So we progress monitoring every 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on school breaks, days off, because you want at least like 10 days of the instruction. And after we progress monitor, we adjust the instruction. So basically we change our groups up just depending on the data that is shown from there. And there is also a little overview of a 2-minute, 36-second video.
This is going to share that with us. Where is it? It's in the middle right there. The slide is right there in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you can click on the video. There we go.
STEM class has opened our eyes to so many more things than we thought were even possible. It sparks a lot of meaningful conversation and reflection. It helps me answer the important question of, am I meeting all of my students' needs? And class is something that I log into pretty much every single day. We use it for goal setting. I had a teacher actually say, not wait to progress monitor, because I want to see my kids grow. So for the progress monitoring, I'm able to go in and look at their last 30 progress monitoring scores and see, oh, okay, what we're doing is working. And so I can use MClass on the instruction tab to then see how MClass is grouping my students based on skill deficits. And I can use that to help me guide the creation of my groups.
What we loved was the suggestions. They were on point. They were specific. It wasn't just, well, you should work on phonics. And then it went to the next step and said, and here's how.
Time is, the kind of thing that you're racing against. It's very limited. And there's so many different things that you have to do. So when everything is already right there and laid out for you, you basically just follow the program and pull what you need and, trust your instincts. I can see their growth, and it's just really inspiring for them, and I think it pushes them to want to reach for that even more. So this really gave us a place that helps build our teacher knowledge, and took away a lot of that angst of like, okay, I'm looking at the data, but I have no idea what to do with it next. And then just recently at one of our data meetings, we had a teacher who pulled up her students' work, looked at their responses, and was able to clearly articulate what she felt was the next step for the student. And she was like, "Oh my goodness, I did it!" She's like feeling more empowered and more effective and more successful in her ability to effectively analyze and interpret that student data.
You will just learn more and more as you get into M class. You can start at step one and then really make an impact in your district or classroom. As educators, it comes down to what's best for students. And so 100% I can say this is what's best for students and what they need to grow.
Oops. Oh, there we go. And so just a little summary right here. Why are we requesting that we approve the recommendation to adopt? We want to comply with the new ed code. We wanted to highlight the already robust screening process that we have at the schools. This is the only tool available to us of the three that allows us to retain the historical data that we already have, and it will also help us to continue to strengthen the systems of support for our students. And so we hope that you approve our request for adoption of this new tool.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Ms. Quindeville, for being here and presenting as well. Okay, with that, we will go out first to public comment on this item. Okay, seeing none in the room and no one online, I'll bring it back for board discussion. Trustee Wax, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Unrelated to this specific thing, but also related. Big thank you to Ms. Quindemill and her whole staff, because my son graduated with a cupcake recently from the reading intervention. So, big progress.
And
Very
also
exciting.
on our team was Miss Sunguzi.
Yes.
Robert H. Down. So she was part of the process as well.
And she came over to Forest Grove each morning too. So thank you both, or everyone really at the school. Great work. Since we entered the intervention, I've kind of become a nerd about this. And at the CSBA conference, I went to a couple of science of reading lectures, conferences, and basically the San Ramon Valley Unified School District had just amazing increases in literacy. And so as a social cosign or something, I checked what screener they were using, and they were using M class. And I was like, okay, cool. That seems good. And then a point of clarification. So you could go back to the Dibbles history. So Dibbles is a separate software basically that stores that data, and M class ties into it? Or how do you pull the reports, I guess, about?
So Amplify Education has a platform, an online platform that you log into, and it has all of the data that they call them the Dibbles reports.
Okay. All right.
So they'll upload what our history that we already have, so that it would
Amplify uploads all that.
And you click on the year. So I can go back and look at 2022, 23, and then you open up the screen for that year, and then those reports come up.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that. And then the final thing, just fiscally, you answered a question offline, but basically the contract will be for around $46,000. Does that factor in the money that PGUSD received from the state already?
Well, no, we just recently received a little over I think it was $6,600 from the state, and that was the 45. That was just a quote from Amplify for a 3-year adoption, and that includes the professional development.
So it'll basically be 46 minus the 6,000 from the state.
Yeah, and if I don't know what if the state will continue year by year or what that will look like.
Okay. And then this isn't a question, but my very rough math, the screener, which you all plan to use 3 times a year, is basically going to be between $21.70 and $22 a kid, which I feel is very good. So, thanks.
Trustee Shamos?
Can you screen younger than kindergarten?
No.
Do they have to know how to, their letters or something to do this screening? Is that why? I'm just wondering, we have TK and I'm just.
Yeah, it's the screening would start in kindergarten, but even that. The first screening that we do for our kindergartners, it's more as just a baseline, because in kindergarten, there's some students that haven't gone to TK, they haven't been, subjected to a lot of maybe academic, knowledge, letters, maybe they don't even they're not writing their name yet. So we still have it as a baseline, but though a lot of those kids are the kids that make the huge progress from getting instruction, in their classroom that first half of the year, those first 100 days, a lot of those kiddos are the ones that go from red to green really quickly. It's just because, exposure sometimes. So if our first time around, when we do the assessment, kindergartners are red, we're not going to freak out about it. It's just basically our baseline data, and then we keep watching. So you're right, sometimes they won't know any letters.
Right.
That first time around.
Yeah. Okay, so when you send these letters home to the parents and you're hoping that they'll do some activities or access some resources, I'm wondering if we could do more than just hope that happens. Because if we're talking about dyslexia, it could be kind of inherited, right? I'm just, when we have an adult school, I'd like to see as much connection with our parents and our adult school, and for whatever we can do, like if we could provide screenings for adults at the adult school. I mean, because it's just my experience that adults that have trouble reading are not going to do much with their kids encouraging their reading. It kind of feeds off itself. So it's just something to think about. I like our district to look at that, because here we have a resource in our adult school. And the more we can connect them up with the parents, and offer some support, the better.
I'm gonna say that I find probably the opposite, that when there are students that really struggle in reading, that their parents are really on board with wanting to do whatever they can at home. They just need some suggestions. They're the ones that definitely, sign the permission slip for their students to get the reading intervention. And they are very transparent, and they'll say, I struggled with reading. I don't want my child to. So for kiddos that really struggle in reading, I find that parents are really on board with being open to the intervention and helping their student.
I love that response coming directly from a teacher. And, Mrs. Quindermall, I mean, the intention of this with the screener is definitely to be able to provide the targeted support and intervention, during the school day, during that instructional time. I think anything that's expected beyond that would be in addition to, but it's lovely to hear directly from you what your experience has been, from the home front. But I do still love your idea. I think any chance we can get as far as, adding, additional supports and, combining and utilizing the resource we have with our adult school.
Yeah, well, my question really, not that they would be doing it, but just that could the adult school use the screening for adults? I guess that's my question.
Oh, not this. This is for K-5. So there might be something out there. I'm sure there is an adult screener for dyslexia. I just don't know what that is. I could look into it if you'd want and come back with something, but
And one thing I learned is that this is this is a reading difficulty screener, and I was like first calling it like a dyslexia screener, and that's like not what it is. It's for reading difficulties, including potential dyslexia. So a student that has dyslexia would have to go on and get further testing in order to determine that.
Dr. Hazen, any questions or comments from you?
None for me. Just thank you. This is awesome. Something I know our board has been really helping work hand in hand with the district on improving. So thank you guys for taking the lead on.
Thank you. I agree. I appreciate you both sharing the thorough selection and vetting process with us, and especially Ms. Quindamill, that you were here to share your knowledge and experience with the board today. I found it really, really valuable. So thank you. As a parent of a kid who did spend time in reading intervention, the parent portal is something that for me would have been a great tool. Because just going home with your kid at home who's struggling with reading and being like, let's read together. I mean, I'm not a teacher. I don't necessarily know how to break it down in a way that we can both work together and get somewhere. So that feels like a tool that would be really valuable for families to be able to use as well in partnership with what the kiddos are learning at school. So very cool. And also that it's in English and Spanish. My question was going to be about dyslexia screening, but you commented on it with those red flags that you mentioned that are going to be there. So I do understand that this isn't for dyslexia specific, but I was glad to see that there is a component that may be able to let people know early if there are those flags. Is that right?
right. So it would just red flag the risk of that student. We wouldn't diagnose a student, right?
Right.
But still, depending on interventions and their response to the intervention that we would provide, it might be that we would need to push it on to, let's say, our special education services to be assessed for special education. It just depends.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the early assessment and intervention. I don't have anything else on this item. I am comfortable making a motion on staff's recommendation to approve the adoption of the Amplified Dibbles M-Class Reading Difficulty Screener. So I will make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion made by trustee McNary and seconded by trustee Wax. Roll call vote, please. Dr. Adamson.
President Dr. Hazen.
Yes.
Acting President Clerk McNary.
Aye.
Trustee Wax.
Aye.
And Trustee Shamas.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That motion passes 4-0. Item C on our action discussion calendar is the proposed board calendar, and this is your item, Dr. Adamson.
Yes, no changes at this time. I think everything is, as proposed. We have our next special meeting next Thursday, which is going to be predominantly dedicated towards governance training. So no changes.
Okay. With that, we'll go out to public comment first on the proposed board calendar. Seeing none in the room and none online, I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion. I don't have anything to add or discuss with regard to the proposed board calendar. I'll look around and see.
No.
Nothing from trustee Wax, trustee Shamas, Dr. Hazen shaking his head as well. So because there are no changes, we will not need a motion or any action on this item, and we can move forward into what is next on our agenda. Next up is information and discussion, and there's only one item on that part of our agenda today, and it is our future agenda items, and that is Dr. Adamson.
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm really just going to reach out to all of our trustees. Any items for future agenda topics? I believe we may have a couple. Yes.
Yes, I do. I'd like to add two. one on review of the complaint procedure 1312.1. And also a review, and I'm not sure if we have this in policy or not, because I don't have a policy number for it, but a review of student computer usage.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go ahead and add those two to the list. And, we have our policy committee coming up in 2 months, so we'll definitely add that to that list.
Okay.
And I think we've already started just sort of looking preliminarily at, what CSBA policies, but also some of our neighboring district policies as well for that. So thank you for bringing those forward this evening.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Any other future agenda items from the rest of the board? Dr. Hazen?
Nope, I was going to mention those too if
Yeah.
Trustee Shanasta not. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. With that, those two items will be added to our future agenda. That'll be the board direction this evening. And with nothing left, we can adjourn. I'm sorry. We can adjourn to closed session. Thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent Jorn. That was close. We're going to adjourn to closed session and we will report out when we get back. But for the rest of you all, I hope you have a wonderful evening and thanks for joining us. We are returning from closed session to report out, and the only additional item that we discussed was number 1 on our agenda, which is negotiations with collective bargaining session planning preparation with the PGTA. And with regard to that item, information was received and board direction was given. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting for the evening and we will be back on March 27th. Thank you.